On this edition of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher.
Largest human being I've ever seen in my life. So I remember it saves and I in there because we were two goofballs. Throw him a football up in the air. He looks up and I tackle him. I go, man, I tackled a Heisman Trophy winner. I used to always joke about that with Shohei Ohtani, but Bo Jackson he's not real. I said, God just dropped this person on the planet. He's a combination of George Brett and Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson, the wow factor, body, but he has the George Brett baseball intangibles. Their primes where they were doing it, the things they were doing with George and Bo, and then you put them in together, and that for me is Mike Trout. I mean, that body that Mike Trout had. He was a Cy Young candidate, and he's hitting 34, 38 home runs, stealing bases. We often talk about it. Go, when we pitched a game, we couldn't even walk the next day, and he's facing Justin Verlander throwing 98, and he's hitting the ball 450 feet. How does he do it? His mindset is different than anybody. We came back against the Angels. We came back 3-1. But the way he said it, it was the most relaxing yet honest. And you felt he knows something we don't know. And boom, we come back and win 3 in a row. We win the World Series.
The greatest sports moments happen in seconds, but the stories behind them are timeless. Dive into the mind of the icons who live those moments. No filters, just authentic conversations about the moments that define careers. I'm Justin Kutcher, and this is the Just in Time podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher. I'm joined now by a guy who is a two-time All-Star in Major League Baseball, spent 14 years in the big leagues, World Series champion, and now the TV analyst for the Los Angeles Angels. He was also the first player that I ever got an autograph from at the stadium. That's right. It is Mark Gubicza. Gubie, so great to have you here. It's almost surreal. You're the first guy to do that. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And now here you are on the podcast.
And Justin, we get to work together too a few times too, man. That was so cool. I mean, the one thing I always remember my dad always telling me is saying, if anybody asks you for an autograph, never say no. And to this day, I still sign autographs, send them back. My wife said, when are you ever going to stop? And I said, at some point, somebody's not going to ask my autograph anymore. And then I'm going to be like kind of bummed out. So it's pretty cool that that was the first autograph that you ever got. So that's kind of fun.
It's funny because I remember a few things about it. One, I don't know if you can tell the colors I'm wearing. This is for you. All right.
Thank you.
The Royals, right? Going to a Yankees-Royals game, you wore number 23. Don Mattingly was my favorite player, wore 23 for the Yankees. And I just remember you pitching against the Yankees all the time. And I was like, Mr. Gubicza, could I please have your autograph? And you came over and you signed. And I was like in heaven. So all of a sudden, I became a huge Mark Gubicza fan, even though you killed the Yankees. And then fast forward to our days when I was at Fox, and the first time I'm at one of the MLB seminars, I see you sitting there, and I'm like, I've never told you this, but I was nervous. I'm like, I have to go up to him and let him know that he was the first autograph I ever got at a big league stadium. And so I had to build up the courage. And I was like, excuse me, Mark, you're like, yeah. I'm like, hey, Justin Kutcher, just wanted to let you know that you're the first player that I ever got an autograph from. And then we got to do games together, which it just comes full circle, and it's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, we always remember the first autograph I ever got was Robin Roberts. He's at opened up our Little League game in Philly. And I remember him being there, and my dad goes, please go say hi to him. I go, Dad, I can't say anything to him. He goes, I still have the ball. It's like amongst all these baseballs I have in my office, a Robin Roberts autographed baseball from, well, I think I was like 8 or 9 years old when he was there. I mean, Hall of Famer, all-time Philly player, and be able to get that. The thing is, that's why I always talk to players, even now, the modern players. I said, you don't understand what kind of impact you can make. I used to watch Cal Ripken Jr. when I was playing sign. Mike Trout is the best I've seen.
I was going to say Trout is unbelievable.
I mean, I remember doing a game against the Tigers. It was a Father's Day, and this little boy runs down, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Gets his autograph, and then Mike Trout immediately goes up and hits a home run. He runs and jumps in his dad's arms as if it was the greatest day ever for the kid and the dad. It was, but yes. Mike Trout doing those things, understanding what kind of impact he can make, not only that day, but in the future. Look at, we're still talking about the autograph I gave you a few years ago. We won't mention how many years ago it was, but it was a few years ago.
That's one thing that I've always loved about Mike Trout is as great as he is, I don't think he's ever lost sight of the kid in him, like of what it meant for someone to sign an autograph for him, maybe, and realizing what he could do for a kid if he signs, because he signs pretty much right up until first pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember, the commissioner one time saying, I wish Mike Trout would do more for baseball as far as commercials and all this stuff. And I remember seeing him one time. I said, Mr. Commissioner, watch one of our broadcasts and see the impact he has on the fans. I mean, he does this everywhere, whether it's in New York, Boston, could be in Seattle, anywhere, could be Pittsburgh, at home in Anaheim. It's amazing the kind of impact he has. By the way, going back to our New York thing, knowing the Royals and the Yankees, the hatred amongst those two teams, I every time we talk about this, I go, that's actually, I feel pretty good about signing an autograph for a Yankee fan because George Brett would always say, if we lose every game during the regular season, it doesn't matter as long as we beat the Yankees. And there's a few other words in there besides beating the Yankees. So I'm like, all right, I'm a Philly kid growing up. Beating the Yankees is always a fun thing.
All right, so let's go back because you just mentioned a couple things that we have to talk about. Second round pick, 1981, by the Royals. The third round pick was a guy named David Cohn. Do you know who the first round pick was that year by the Royals?
Dave Leeper.
Yep.
Yeah. At USC. And then the guy right in between David Cohn and Tony Ferreira, we were called the Three Musketeers. It was me, David Cohn, and it's Tony Ferreira. We were three pitchers. He played a little bit in the big leagues, played a little bit with the Mets himself, but we were connected to the hips, and they kept trying as best they could to maybe separate one in low A ball, one in high A ball, double A, but we were connected forever. But Coney and I, he was a Kansas City kid, so, and here I'm a Philly guy. They just played in the World Series the year before, the Phillies and the Royals. So we had some pretty interesting conversations, that's for sure.
All right, so you got to tell me, what was it like coming up in the minors with David Cohn? Because the two of you guys, I know, were really close, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that World Series in '80, I went to the Game 6 against the Royals, and it's the only game I ever went with my dad in my entire life. So here we are.
Crazy.
The Phillies had never won a World Series; they've been in existence forever. So it was such a surreal moment. I was right there where the ball popped out of Bob Boone's glove into Pete Rose's glove, and for many years I always talked about that with Pete Rose and stuff. So we're that close because Ruben Amaro Sr. was a first base coach, and I played with both his sons at Penn Charter in my high school. So we got his seats. We're right behind the dugout. So I remember here we are, Tug McGraw's throwing up his arms. I'm thinking about running on the field. I go, Dad, what do you think? He goes, well, you see, there's like 1,000 German shepherds and there's police officers on mounted police. I don't think it's a good idea, but if you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. I go, no, I'll wait to hang out with my buddies going home. So then literally months later, I'm drafted by the Royals. I'm thinking, wait a minute, I hated the Royals. They played the Phillies. But I remember my dad saying the Royals, very similar to the Phillies, were in the playoffs like every year, 76, 77, 78. They both got beat by, obviously, the Royals got beat by the Yankees, and the Phillies were losing to the Dodgers and the Reds. And I remember, like, the first person I see is David Cohn. So here we are arguing who's the best third baseman ever. I'm saying Mike Schmidt. He's saying George Brett.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going back and forth, having a blast like that. I mean, but I could see right away that he was special, Coney. And, not only he was a great competitive pitcher, extremely smart. And I always say that to people. People don't realize how smart he is. They think of Coney as this, always a fun-loving guy. So here we are, Philly guy, Midwest guy. Now I mentioned Tony Ferreira, a California guy. So we got all the coast and the Midwest all together. Yet we're all connected with the thought of we all got to make it to the big leagues with the Royals. And, obviously for David, it would be the ultimate thrill to play for his hometown team. So we became instant friends, and we had kind of like that, trying to be as good as, each other. I mean, I wanted to be as good as Coney that day. And the next day he's trying to be as good as me. So we had that friendly competition that I think it made us better going forward. I'll tell you what, there was no, I mean, to this day, we text each other, see each other when we go to New York. And And we still, like, whenever we have a conversation, even when we did those Fox meetings and stuff, we act like we're still like we're 12 years old.
It's weird what sports can do, but you go right back to those times where maybe I don't know. Did you guys room together in the minors?
Yeah. Oh, we're
Oh
roommates.
god.
So yeah, you can only imagine how that turned out because we had a blast. I mean, we were, back in those days, we were thinking you're getting like $11 a day meal money. So that's all three meals, and you're having roommates because you can't afford anything because you're making $600, $700 a month, and you got to get your place, you got to have food, everything. So, but I wouldn't trade that in for anything. Those long bus drives, those 16-hour bus drives, because they were family and you were together. And then as soon as the season's over, you're playing instructional ball down in Florida. We lived together in Florida down there, right on the beach at Siesta Key Beach. I'm like, wow, that was living. I mean,
Right.
we had such a good time together. But our ultimate goal was we were shocked that we were both drafted. He didn't even play high school baseball. He played Legion ball, or
Wait,
I forget what it's
what?
called, Band Johnson, I think, or something like that out there, because they didn't have a baseball team at his high school in Rockhurst in Kansas City at that point. So here we are. He's playing basically in a summer league, and they're watching him, and he was a tremendous athlete. He was a great basketball player too. And here I am in Philly playing 3 months a year, but I'm playing football and I'm playing basketball myself. So here we are together, trying to do something that, you always see kids from California, you see it from Texas, you see it from Florida, because they're playing 12 months a year. You feel okay. We can tell right away how advanced they were because I mean, when I'm like, wait a minute, all I know is throw the ball, try to throw the ball through the guy at home plate, and they'll go from there. But these guys are like, oh, if we move the ball here, manipulate the baseball there, I'm like, wow. So being around Coney really helped me out as far as being competitive. We both said the same thing, that we wanted to be just like the other and just be as competitive as possible and somehow, some way make it to the big leagues.
And then the next year, the Royals drafted another pitcher, I think in was it like the 17th round or something? In Brett Saberhagen. So in a couple of years, they drafted an insane potential starting five.
Yeah, you throw in that January draft when they used to have it. Danny Jackson was in there too, so we were all lumped together. I'm like, here we are, because at that point when our first big league camp was '83, and they had Vita Blue was there, Gaylord Perry, Steve Renko, Dennis Leonard was still a dominant pitcher, Paul Splitter, Larry Gora. So we're looking at all of these guys, and here we are, all these young core of pitchers all coming up. We're all looking at these guys saying, hey, we're never getting to the big leagues. But then you also realize they've been pitching for a long time. At some point, we're going to replace them. But we learned so much from them. Like Vita Blue was one of the all-time great. He used to take Coney and I and save we all out to lunch in spring training, and I'm thinking, dude, we're going to try to take your job, man. but but he was so cool about that. So he was like, oh, I had guys like that did the same thing for me coming up. So that's the one thing I really learned. I'm sure it was like that in other organizations, but for Kansas City, it was like when it's your turn to be that guy, to be that leader, because Kevin Apier came along and then he was the guy that I kind of mentored along. And I knew at some point he was going to be our ace of the staff. But he ended up doing that with the Angels, with John Lackey, and John Lackey did with, Jared Weaver and so on. So you want to set the example. And Kansas City was so good with that. With Dennis Leonard, he was a guy that, because he was right by me in the locker room, he got to the point where he would run from me because I would sit there and talk to him all day long. And even when we do these fantasy camps, I'm the first guy I ever see, Leo, and he goes, "You again." I said, you can't escape me no matter what you do, and you're never escaping me, Leo."
That's so good. So I was kind of wondering, as I'm looking at this and I'm going, man, like you've got those three guys that I mentioned, but then you go to the big leagues, you get called up in '84, right? That's when you like your first full year in the big leagues. You go to a team that's one of the best teams in baseball and you're 21 years old. So, how, as a 21-year-old, are you trying to ingratiate yourself to this team while not offending somebody who's, I don't know, on a Hall of Fame trajectory like a George Brett?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is, so just as we're now, we're figuring at that point they don't call you in and say you made a team. It's when they don't talk to you that's when you do it. So Sabes and I, literally David Cohn hurt his knee, or that kind of slowed down his progress of making the big league. So Saves and I both make the team in '84. So we get our luggage in spring training at Fort Myers. We kind of hide it in amongst all the luggage, thinking, well, nobody's going to notice. So we run in the back of the bus thinking, they still don't know we're here. So we fly to Memphis. We play an exhibition game against our double A team in Memphis, Tennessee. And we're like, wait a minute, they still don't know we're here. And all the guys are like laughing their heads off, going, hello, you made the team. And then finally, Dick Hauser, our manager, comes up and goes, all right, guys, you do know you made the team. So let's start acting like big league players. Don't act like you're still in high school. So we're like, ah. So, my first day, this third game of the season, I'm going to be pitching. I'm going up against Cleveland. Burt Blyleven's on the other side. I'm facing him. And I never did. So game 2. So they announced, making his debut for the Royals will be Mark Gubicza. So I'm like, Gazuba? I mean, I'm going to be here for like 5 seconds. I'll never forget this because Dick Hauser gets on the phone and goes, his name is Gubicza, slams it, bang, and then next to me, the thing's falling on the ground. So at that point, it made me feel good that he had my back right away.
Yeah.
Here's a manager just a couple of years ago for the Yankees, won 103 games. And here he is, our manager. He has my back. He doesn't know me from anything at that point. But I'll never forget what George Brett told me when he said, Hauser told him this. We got a chance of being really good for a lot of years because this kid, Saberhagen, Gubicza, Danny Jackson, they're going to be good for a lot of years, and I have a lot of trust in them. So here he is, a manager, that good of a manager, having trust in kids that were in Double A. We didn't even pitch in Triple A. Here we are in the big leagues, and he's got a lot of trust in us. So that made us feel pretty good.
So who was the one who made the call that said, ultimately that you and Saves were going straight from Double A to the big leagues?
Gene Lamont was our manager. I'll never forget this in Double A. And they were moving guys back and forth going up to Triple A. And I remember him pulling me in my office one day. He goes, so what do you think about this guy going up to Triple A? I'm like, Gino, my numbers are way better than these guys going up. He goes, you know what? Don't give me that, that tone of voice. Don't worry about that. You're good. You might not even ever see Triple A, and then go out there and perform the rest of the year. I'm like, whoa. And so I didn't even think. I was like mad I wasn't going up to Triple A because I always thought you had to go rookie ball, A ball, Double A, Triple A, and a number of innings and years and all those levels potentially before you make it to the big leagues. So then when I look and I think about that, I go, he must have known that there was a possibility that was going to be the course the Royals were going to take. So I think Gene Lamont was as big a part of that as anybody. And like every time I see Gino to this day, I always thank him because he was tough, he was funny, but he also showed me and taught me so many life lessons that he was a big part of the reason why I made it to the big leagues.
He and Jim Leland are incredibly tight. Jim Leland was a guest on this podcast, and he talked a lot about Gene Lamont. Did you see the Jim Leland effect in Gene Lamont?
Oh, definitely. Definitely I mean, because he knew, I want to say he was a player's manager, but he also made sure you respected the game, you respected your teammates, and you respected the fact is there's not many people play this game, whether it's in the minor leagues or the major leagues. So you better be performing at the highest level every time. I think I learned from Gino that, and I can say this throughout my whole career, even when I'm doing right now, just I never am not prepared. And I mean, I've had bad games, bad broadcasts, everything, but it was never because I wasn't prepared. I was prepared to go 20 innings every time I took them out. And if I didn't go the full game, I wasn't happy about it. I didn't sleep at night after I pitched. I honestly never slept for like 14 years after I pitched. And my wife
Okay.
would even go like, all right, just do what you're going to do. Watch whatever show. Because I've replayed so many things in my mind. Even if I threw a shutout, I'm thinking, well, why did I throw a no hitter? Or why did I throw a perfect game? So I was replaying the thing in my mind that night. The next day, I worked out insanely because I learned a lot from Nolan Ryan, running like 5 miles a day, doing sprint works, doing weights, throwing, all that stuff. But that night after I pitched, I should have been a writer. I would have been able to write like a million books at that point.
So, all right, let me ask you this. Had you thrown a perfect game, do you think you would have been able to sleep that night?
Probably not, because then I would have replayed the whole thing like every out I got. Because I remember calling David Cohn when he threw his perfect game
Yes.
too, and like he's like, I don't even know how this happened. I mean, because even I threw a one hitter against the A's at the time when they had McGuire and all those guys on that team. And the funny thing was, in the fifth inning of that game, I was going against Ron Darling, another good friend of mine, because he was with Oakland.
He was the
I
same
remember
draft class as you,
exactly.
first rounder.
Yes, he was. And then, so Bob Boone's our manager. Here he is. Bob Boone was in that World Series team in '80. So here he's my teammate. Then he's our, my manager. I remember him telling Greg Gagne get over in the hole when Mark McGuire's on there, and he couldn't hear him, Gags. So I'm like, McGuire never hits the ball on the ground anyhow. Lo and behold, he hits a ground ball through the hole, and that's the only hit I gave up in the whole game. I'm like, wow, I should have listened to Moody and let him be able to move him over. But who knows if I would have gave up a hit later on in the game. But it was so. I mean, those kind of relationships with. I mean, I ended up having 3 straight managers that were teammates. It went from John Wathan, who was my catcher and manager, Hal McRae, our DH, and then he's our manager, and then Bob Boone, same thing. So it was the relationship I had there. So they had trust in me. When he had come out to the mound, I would literally go, "I'm your best option." So they walk back to the dugout. But they also said, when I said that, I looked them straight in the eye. Now, if I wasn't looking around like it's, "Oh yeah, I'm your best option," and look, now you're out of the game. But so, and I even told a couple of guys over the years with the Angels, I go, man, why don't I get a chance to finish up games or go deeper in a game? Because you have to tell the manager, but you got to do it in the right way, that I'm your best option. I'm better than anybody down there. Now, you might not necessarily be the case, but if you have that conviction, that I never believed taking out a pitcher just to take him out because it went the third time, fourth time through is always the right decision. But you also have to, when you say that to your manager, he's putting a lot of trust in you that you better go out and make some pretty good pitches. Sometimes things don't work out, but you better go out with their conviction that I'm gonna pick him up and I'm gonna pick up my teammates and win this game.
Give me an instance that sticks out in your mind of one of your managers coming out and you're being like, turn around, I'm finishing.
Yeah, I mean, exact same thing. Bob Boone. So I'm pitching against the Angels, and I even tell this one to Garrett Anderson all the time. So here we are. I think it's a 3-1 game. It's a low scoring game in ninth inning, and they got a base runner on. He comes out, and he's got this slow walk. I said, this is going to be a tough one. And I said, Booney, I guarantee you all my life, I will get Garrett Anderson to hit a ground ball. He goes, all right, if you say so. So he goes back. Boom, lo and behold, Garrett Anderson, it's a ground ball, make it through the hole for a hit. So I'm like, oh man, he comes out, he goes, well, you got the ground ball. I said, no, I didn't get it at the right guy. I need to get it at my infield. He goes, no, you did your job. And Jeff Montgomery came in and saved the day anyhow. So we were able to win the game. So that was one of those times that, that was trusted no matter. Hal McRae was really good with that with me too. John Wathan, obviously, is a former catcher with me. He knew when I was done and when I still had a fight in me. But even when I talk to like guys like Garrett Cole, when you see, it doesn't matter how many times through there, when you see their face and their eyes, and when they come out to the mound, you saw it in the World Series there in the playoffs where you go out to Max Scherzer and he goes, hey, this is my game, and chances are he's going to make a pitch, and he did. He's one of my favorites. I got a chance to talk to him last year when he was kind of rehabbing, and the Jays were in town. He's doing a couple innings. I ran into their booth and I had to say hi to him. I go, dude, I just love the way you compete. And he goes, that's the best compliment I can ever have. I mean, we can always say, oh, great numbers, but I always say the way you go out there and compete on the mound. That's why I love guys like Garrett Cole and guys like that go out there and just compete and fight all the way to the end.
It's funny because I asked Jim Leland the question, and I had Justin Verlander in Double-A in Erie in 2005. Verlander and Zumaya were with us in Erie, and I was the broadcaster. So I saw Verlander, and I was like, this dude's different. When he goes up to the big leagues, his rookie year, it's like the 7th or 8th inning, and Leland goes out to the mound, and Verlander's like, okay, I'm coming out, this, and Leland just said to him, you're better than any option I've got out there. Finish the game. And I asked, did that change Verlander's approach? He's like, I think it did. He goes, I don't want to take all the credit for it, but I think all of a sudden it made him realize, like, I'm going to start a job. I'm going to finish the job. I'm the best guy here. And that was so cool because he was like that in the minors. I mean, dude was unstoppable, and he's had a Hall of Fame Major League Baseball career.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of my all-time favorites too. Every chance I get a chance to talk to him, I do. And I say, it's crazy because even when Shohei was with the Angels, I would say, Just look at Verlander. He's like 93, 94 in the first inning, then a little bit more. Then all of a sudden, it's like the seventh, eighth, and ninth inning, he's throwing 97, 98, 99. I'm like, where does that come from? Because that's the guy he becomes. He knows early in the game, I can get an out on one or two pitches. And that's the thing. It's tough for guys today in the game. And I often say it, it's not their fault. It's all about potentially throwing as hard as you can, swing and misses, and don't leave anything in the tank. But if you can learn to get some quick outs, all of a sudden when you need that 99 to 100, it's on you quicker as a hitter because they haven't seen it. So that's the thing I always loved about Verlander, and I always say, I want to say this in the best way possible. When you look at pitches that are good, because Tom Seaver was like the guy I patted myself after throwing. Nolan Ryan, big thick thighs, big old booties, and strong cores. That is the difference between staying healthy and staying consistent with your velocity from the first pitch you throw to potentially your 163rd pitch, which I did in a game. Nolan Ryan threw over 200 pitches in a game, but he had the same stuff because that core and the leg strength was there to make sure your shoulder and elbow stayed intact.
Was 163 your highest?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a Sunday afternoon game in August. And the funny thing is, too,
in
Justin,
Kansas City?
In Kansas City.
Oh,
so
God, with the turf.
We're leading this game, and I kid you not. It's 16-1 against the Red Sox. And Billy Gardner is our manager. I'm thinking, I end up losing I think 12 pounds that day. And he goes, how do you feel? I go, I'm like a fighter. I feel good. I'm thinking, wait a minute. Isn't there somebody on the bullpen that can protect a 15-run lead? It is a million degrees. The turf was like 150 that day. It was an afternoon game. So I go, first pitch I throw, I think somebody had a home run against me. Second pitch, Greeny hit one off the top of the wall in dead center field for a triple. I'm thinking, all right, maybe I'm spent, and I'm still thinking there isn't not a human being moving down the bullpen. So either I got to finish this game off, and I got to think and become selfish, think about my ERA here. So then I finally got the next three outs. I got through there. We won 16-3, but I'm thinking, through 163 pitches, I'm thinking, okay, but that's just the way it was. I mean, right from the get-go, Hal McRae, our DH, and Lee May was our first base coach. He pulls me aside. It's like my third or fourth game. So, where we won the game, I went 6 innings, gave up like 3 runs. They go, hey, they used to call me Cabana Boy from the Flamingo Kid because they said I looked like Matt Dillon in that movie. Cabana Boy, come here. I walk over to him and go, how do you feel? I'm like, oh, this is a trick question. I'm 21 years old. I don't know what I'm going to say. I say, good. They go, and then they started ripping me apart saying, we play every day and you go 6 innings. You wait 5 days to go 6 innings. If you don't go 7 or 8 or 9 innings, don't you ever come in here and smile again. And I was waiting for a punchline. Boom, they left me there. So I'm thinking, you know what? I'll take my chances with fighting Dick Hauser over fighting those two guys. So I'm battling them all the way through. Every time Dick Hauser would come out, he's just going, oh my, what am I going to have to say to this kid now to get him out of the game? So that's the mentality I think it helped. As a position players telling me how much they wanted us as pitchers to go out there and be like them as much as possible. Guys in the bullpen, they're in a different world down there. Don't even acknowledge them as humans, but position players, at least as starters, because you're in the bench helping and rooting your teammates on. But that 5th day, their thinking is, if I'm playing 9 innings in this heat or on the turf, you better be doing just the same.
I never thought of it until you just said this. Back in the day, did those guys, the everyday position players, treat the bullpen guys as if they were the field goal kickers?
They don't even know your name unless you blow a save or if you give up a run. That's what I always say to kickers. I said, boy, those guys have it so tough. They make a field goal while you're supposed to. But if you miss one, what is wrong with you? Same thing as a bullpen arm. I mean, Quiz was one of the funniest guys I've ever seen. But if he ended up having a tough game, everyone's looking like, hello, your only job is to get 3 outs. What's wrong with you? So
of course, that's Dan Quisenberry. Yeah.
Yes. God, he was the best.
So you come up as a 21-year-old and you mentioned some names. What was, because this is now the 80s, what was the rookie hazing that you had to go through? What was your initiation into that Royals team? Because this is a team that's ready to win. They go to the ALCS that year. So you're a young guy. They know they need you, but they need to know that, you've got that thick skin.
Yeah, the only, I mean, the thing is, Frank White was so great to me, and I was shocked he was. George Brett, I mentioned staying, living with him for my first 2 years in the big leagues. Hal McRae was the same way, so I expected a lot of that kind of stuff. The only thing I did, if I saw the suitcase was there, I was carrying it. If I go on the bus and Saves was on there, I was sitting next to him. But that's the one thing, the biggest thing
Double up,
that,
double up.
yeah, yeah. If you're not doubling up, you're in deep trouble. And it was funny because then when I became that veteran guy, really didn't care. It didn't bother me if they didn't double up. I mean, my big thing was I wanted, like, when I became the veteran, I wanted the younger players to respect the veteran players. I think because all those veteran guys were so good to us that it wasn't like we felt that we were going to push the limit. So, then George even said the same thing when I'm limited. He even tells the story. He goes, like Mark Gubicza was staying with me for over a week. Then finally, yes, George, can I use your phone to call my parents? He still tells the story. So he goes, but I learned that this to show respect for those guys, that wasn't anything that ever like stood out to me like, man, these guys, had a fun time with me or anything like that. So they were strong as far as the group. I think there was a lot of similarities. You see this a lot with even talking guys on the Dodgers, that there was a royal way of playing baseball. And it went from rookie ball all the way up to the big leagues. And you had to play. John Shearholtz was a farm director when I first signed, and then he became our general manager. Funny story about that one too. He was telling this story too when we're down in Atlanta. So here I am. He comes into my house. It's me and my dad, my brothers, in our row home in Philly. And he walks in there with trying to get a deal done. I mean, obviously money wasn't crazy like that at getting drafted in the second round, but it was a compensation pick because Darryl Porter, former Royal great, signed with the Cardinals, so they got a compensation pick. So he tells the story. He goes, I was so happy to get this deal done because I felt I was going to end up in the Schuylkill River back in Philly with cement shoes on if I didn't get it done. So I go, I got to get this thing done no matter what. I go, oh, okay, let's get it done. If they could have really, be honest with you, they could have offered me $1, I would have went and played because I just wanted to play professional baseball. Even though I signed my letter of intent to go to Duke University, my mom was in tears. She wanted me to go to Duke University and go to college. My dad's just sitting there with his arms crossed because he played minor league ball with the White Sox. He goes, son, this whatever you feel best. And so my mind went to, all right, I'll give myself 4 years. If I don't make it to the big leagues, that's my 4 years I went to college. I'll go back and make my parents proud going to school. Even though I know I wasn't once I was going, I wasn't going to school at that point anyhow, but at least in my mind, I was playing mind games with that. So as it turns out, obviously the way it went, obviously would have been cool going to Duke and getting a degree at Duke. But playing professional baseball, that's all I cared about. That's the only thing I ever thought about my whole life. I didn't think about it because I had a bunch of friends who were police officers in Philly, firemen, all those things. I didn't want to do anything except for baseball. I'm throwing baseballs off the front of my house, off the row homes, we used to play wire ball, throwing it off the wires and reacting on there. I was constantly throwing a baseball and hitting a baseball, playing stick ball. I didn't know anything else. It's the only thing I ever thought I was going to do. And I didn't believe in my mind that because I played in a colder climate that I wasn't going to get the opportunity. So when I was drafted by the Royals, I'm like, all right, I'm going to make the most of it, make it to the big leagues and, make the playoffs my first year. We win the World Series. My second year, I'm like, this is unbelievable. How's this possible? How am I getting this lucky?
So okay, let's talk about those first 2 years because you go to the ALCS your rookie year, you lose. The second year, you go to the ALCS. It's a 7-game series against the Blue Jays, and you guys trail 3-1 in the series. You win Game 5 to make it 3-2, and then you are starting Game 6, and you're 22 years old.
Yes.
Okay.
Insane.
Do you even comprehend at 22 years old what you're about to do when you take the mound, or is it just like, okay, give me the ball?
Yeah. The crazy thing, Justin, because I didn't know if I would at that point if I was going to be even starting in that series. I pitched in Game 1 in relief up in Toronto. So after we win Game 5, that's where George had that incredible game, and jumping on his back. So my locker's like, I'm looking straight in Dick Hauser's office, and he goes like this, waves me in. I'm like, oh, what is going on here? He goes, you're starting Game 6. I went, and like, so I remember walking out of there. I didn't know if I could breathe or not. So then George Brett brought me right over. He goes, hey, don't even worry about it. Either we're going to game 7 or we're playing golf the next day. So just go out and have fun. And then all of a sudden it was like a weight in the it was like, I could breathe. So immediately I go home, call my dad. My dad says, I'm coming to the game. I said, Dad, sure, but I don't know where you're staying. He goes, I'm staying in your room. So he comes up my room, my dad, my uncle, and my American Legion coach. All three of them are in my room. I'm pitching game 6 of a do or die series, and they're snoring exceptionally loud. So I'm sitting there going, all right, I'm not going to sleep 5 seconds before this game. But I go back to when I talked to Tom Seaver, he goes, hey, Mark, you know what the most important day is for a starting pitcher? I'm like, the night before? He goes, no. It's the night before the night before. Because the night before you pitch, you're playing the game up in your mind. You're going to have a horrible sleep. So that's why the day before that is the most important sleep. So I had a great night's sleep that day. Go out there for game 6. And I'll never forget seeing my dad's eyes as the same look he gave me after the Phillies won the World Series in '80. He was like the proudest dad, and I was the proudest human being in the world that I got to hug him because now we are going game 6. They all fly back, so I didn't have to deal with the snoring in game 7. But it was such an incredible moment where them being there and winning that game. And I'll never forget, like, George came up to me, looks at me right in the eye, goes, we're going to game 7. And I'm like, I can't believe it. And then game 7, it starts out Saves is on the mound. He gets hit with a line drive off his ankle. He gets knocked down to first or second inning. Charlie Liebrandt comes in the game who had already lost 2 games in the series. I'm like, but he pitched well. And that's a game where Jim Sundberg hits one off the top of the wall there at the old exhibition stadium. He gets away from Jesse Barfield. It's like a 3-run double. That Toronto team was as good as any team I've ever seen. That outfield with Bell, Mosby, and Barfield. I'm like, oh my word. We had no business winning that series when you think about it, especially being down 3-1. But to come back like we did, I'll never forget that celebration. Every time we go by this, it's a Hilton there in Toronto. I always tell the guys on the Angels, I go, we had the most incredible celebration ever in mankind's history because no one ever came back with 3-1. We were down 2-0, 3-1, and we did the same exact thing, and no team had ever done that in any sport. To be part of something, even though coming back to that year in '85, we were like 7 games out at the All-Star break. We open up the second half with the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. We lose all 5. So we're done. We're done. But the Royals, tapping into what they've done in the past, they've always had tremendous August, Septembers. We play the Angels 8 times in September. I think we won 7. So we picked up 6 games. We won the division by 1 that year, just by 1. So then we fall behind 3-1, 3-1, and we win the World Series. That's insane.
And the World Series, what a World Series it was against the St. Louis Cardinals. So Kansas City against St. Louis, there's that rivalry right there. But you don't pitch in the World Series. I was looking at this and I'm going, okay, wait a minute. He started 28 games during the regular season. He just started game 6 when you're down 3-2 to get you to a 7th game, and you don't appear in a World Series game. So what are you thinking at this time? Like when you're watching every day, were you on the roster?
Yes.
And then were you like, am I going to get in? Am I not going to get in? What's the mindset?
Yeah, the crazy thing is Steve Farr's down there too in the bullpen. He won a game in the playoffs too, and he didn't get in that series either. So we're both down in the bullpen. I warmed up in game when the game when Bud Black pitched in St. Louis. I warmed up in that game, and Joe Beckwith was right beside me, and he didn't pitch in the playoff series against Toronto. So it was a pretty good deficit. So he came in that game. I was still down in the bullpen, and I remember like thinking, and even in game 7, because our starting pitching was so good, Danny Jackson goes CGs. Sabraden goes 2 CGs in the game. Charlie Liebrandt was unhittable. I'm thinking there really is no time to get in the game. So I kept joking around. I said, call down, or our bullpen coach was Schaefer. I go, just call down to Mr. Hauser and tell him I'll pinch run. I remember climbing up on the fence after we caught that last out. I remember running onto the field, and some fan took the hat right off my head. To this day, I still have no idea where my hat is. I don't even know if that fan just got it, threw it away, or whatever it was from game 7. But I remember thinking, a couple of people asked me, do you feel bad you weren't? I said, no. I said, I was part of something that is magical, that we're still together to this day. And I remember Dick Hauser came up to me after all the celebration. He goes, Mark, I apologize. I said, for what? because I didn't get you in the series. He goes, Mr. Hauser, I'm part of a World Series championship team. I'll clean the toilets if you ask me to. I don't care. This is one of the thrills. And then I'm thinking, okay, we made the playoffs my first year, World Series second. We're going to do it every year. Never again. It's like, I said, no, how did that ever happen? But regrets whatsoever. I mean, obviously, you think about, boy, it would have been fun to get in there, but to see the way this team came back. I mean, that hit Dane Orge to win the, game 6 and all the magic George Brett after falling behind 3-1, we're in St. Louis. And I'll never forget George Brett comes in and pops open a Budweiser in St. Louis. Of course, it'd be a Budweiser. He goes, we got him right where we want him. And that's all he said. I'm like, what? I'm thinking, we've run out of luck. We came back against the Angels. We came back 3-1. But the way he said it, it was the most relaxing yet honest. And you felt, man, he knows something we don't know. And boom, we come back and win 3 in a row. We win the World Series like that.
It speaks to the leader that he is and that he was. I think about what you just said when you came out of your manager's office knowing you're starting game 6 and he's like, hey, either we're going to game 7 or playing golf. Either way, it's fine. Like to crack open a Budweiser when everyone's, nervous. Got him right where we want him, boys. Let's go. Like there's something simple yet like powerful with what he did.
Yeah. And it wasn't like slamming stuff, throwing stuff. It's the way he said it. I mean, we knew he was the toughest competitor I've ever been around. I mean, he was as tough as any human being I've ever been around. And ask Goose Gossage, any of those guys, that no one messed with him. And it wasn't like he was going to go out and fight. He didn't need to. But the way he went, unless you're Craig Nettles in that one playoff game when they get up this side of those guys used to be best friends, by the way, and it just went nuts. So that's all comes down to the hatred for the Royals and the Yankees, and that's from that slide from Hal McRae to Willie Randolph, where he took him into the left field. Didn't even come close to a slide, by the way. It was a good block though.
Yeah,
he had a good hole. Somebody would have scored a touchdown. But I mean, having guys like that, like Dennis Leonard was my guy on the pitching side, the same things. But watching Frank White's and George Brett's and Hal McRae's and Willie Wilson's, those guys go hard and play every minute of every game as if it was the 7th game of the World Series, really helped us all out. And then we became those guys that we kind of mentors, the Kevin Apier's, the Jeff Montgomerys and guys that came after that. So it was a process to watch that, because it just doesn't click automatically. You watch and see how George could say all those things, but if I saw him doing it, like we had a couple tough games and reporters come up and talk to him after the game. So after they all left, I go, man, how did you talk to him after a game like that? He goes, what, am I only going to talk to him when I have a good game? It's the same thing. They have a job to do. I have a job to do. I didn't do my job that day, but I will do it tomorrow. And just thinking of saying that, I'm like, that's why, like, there was many times where I remember in a game, I lost 1-0. I remember every game, by the way.
I love it.
So Tommy John's on the mound for the Yankees. I lose 1-0, and Bob Boone's is our catcher. I remember I threw a pitch on the outside part of the plate. It was a ball, but Booney was so good he didn't even move his glove. He just threw like this, and it kind of deflected off the end of his mitt. And that's the only run to score. And they gave me a wild pitch. I'm thinking more likely it could have been a pass ball. So right away after the game, a couple of the reporters for the night goes, do you feel like you blew the game by throwing that wild pitch? And my first instinct would have been saying every word in the world. I said, you know what? I did. I should have been better on that pitch. And he was like, he was waiting for somewhat of a confrontation, a couple of guys. And they're like, oh, that's, because I remember George Brett saying the same thing. It's better off, taking responsibility. Yeah, I should have been a better pitch. And hey, when you're shutting out the Yankees in Yankee Stadium with the guys ahead on that team, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. If you give up like 3 or 4 runs in a game, you should win a game. But it was one of those ones where Tommy John had everybody off balance. But if I don't make that pitch, we were still playing. So in a sense, it was my responsibility. I took that, but it diffused everything, and that was it. That was the only question I ever asked. Otherwise, I would be out there going, well, why did this and that? Why did they score runs and all this other stuff? So it worked out perfectly.
Okay, so you have to tell me, George Brett, You said you lived with him for 2 years? Your first, so 84, 85, you lived with him?
Yeah, yeah. Not the whole year, parts of the year. And then he found places for me. At some point, he probably said, "Get out of this place before it's too long." Yeah,
Well, I need to know because people, if you haven't seen George Brett do this, he goes back. I want to say he's like a guest. I don't think he's the actual hitting coach at this point. I think he's a guest, but he tells a story. He's mic'd up at spring training and he talks about shitting his pants.
yes,
And it's one of the funniest videos I've ever seen in my life. And baseball players are different than every other sport. Like they just are. So in that time when you're living with him, what is it like? Like, I mean, if he's telling that story on a mic, I can only imagine
yeah.
what he's telling to you in the house.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going looking around his house a few times, and I'm like, and I see these bottles of champagne to Dom Perignon. I'm thinking, like, if I'm having Mad Dog, 2020 wine as a kid, I'm thinking that's the greatest thing on the planet. But I'm seeing all that stuff, but the way he prepared. I mean, he wasn't a guy that necessarily, at least at that point in his career, he wasn't a workout fanatic. So he's sitting there, we go to Wendy's and get a triple cheeseburger. Like I'm thinking, but that's just the way he was. And then you go out and I go, and then, not that there was really good spreads after the game. Every once in a while we'd have pizza or whatever. And he's going in there with his, he never wore batting gloves. So he's got blisters on his hand, pine tar. I'm looking at him. I said, George, is that the healthiest thing in the world? He goes, I've seen what you've eaten. I've seen what, you're drinking after a game. You're okay. Yeah, those kind of things like that. So he always had a lot of fun like that. I mean, he never, once the game was over, funny as can be, but like when you saw him, soon as it's almost like he was Clark Kent. He goes into that phone booth. He comes out. It's like, it's all business. But as soon as that game's over, he's popping open a cold one, and it's a free fall. It's having fun.
Let's fast forward. And in 1986, this football player debuts in the majors with you guys, Bo Jackson. First impression when Bo was in a Royals uniform, what was it?
Largest human being I've ever seen in my life. So he comes into the locker room in Oakland. We got, of course, Heisman. I'm a sports fanatic. I
I
know
know
all
you are.
sports like the
Yeah.
back of my hand. So I remember it Saves and I in there because we were two goofballs. Throw him a football up in the air. He looks up and I tackle him. I go, man, I tackled the Heisman Trophy winner. And he looks at me and saves, and he picks us both up in a bear hug. We're both up in the air. Our feet are dangling like Freddy Krueger, or Jason from Friday the 13th. And I'm going, that'll be the last time I ever do that. I mean, that dead weight picking us up at like has to be 400 plus pounds, like we were absolutely nothing. So then I go, all right, this guy's legit. And then obviously we've all seen all the incredible things he's done as far as hitting the baseball, but he used to give me sideline passes for every Raider game there too. And I used to go
Really?
there. Yeah. As much as we were in awe with him, the same thing with football players, and football players are a different breed. They are like intense as could be, but like Howie Long and Bob Golick and all those guys would look at him going, he ain't real. I said the same thing. I always joke about that with Shohei Ohtani, but Bo Jackson was not. He's not real. I said God just dropped this person on the planet and I'm going, this is the most incredible human I've ever seen. As fast as he was, his first game, he's going against Steve Carlton when he's at Cleveland. Homers. To this day, if you ask him, he will still say that ball was fair because it was over the foul pole. And he goes, hey, he had a good angle. Maybe with replay we'd be able to say. And then he hits a ground ball to the second baseman and he beats it out. I'm like, we're sitting in the dugout
On
going,
turf. On
yeah.
turf.
I'm like, what human being, especially a right-handed batter, beats out, and if after he hit a ball like 500 feet foul, where to go, and the things he was doing, and it was raw because there was games in which he wasn't going to foul a ball, and then there's other games hitting the ball like the first home run he hit at Royal Stadium, they said it was 475, but it almost, this is before the fountains were on the left center field side. It almost got out. There was like a chain link fence all the way to the top of the grassy knoll. We always say it up there, and it almost left the stadium, and it's already 385 their power out. I mean, no one has 385. So this is like no human does these things, and the throws and the way he ran. But he was such a fun guy to be around. Like again, it's like George Brett. As soon as He got in there one time. I remember coming out from the shower and boom, he shoots a bow and arrow, goes right into one of the clubhouse, right into one of the lockers. And I'm like, I almost died. And I'm thinking, no, I'm good at this stuff. I'm like, well, Bo knows everything. So, this is stuff he did and just to have fun. I think he needed that because I couldn't imagine him in the whole social media world we live in right now. He probably wouldn't be able to walk 1 inch before a zillion people. And even when we won, the All-Star game in '89, he did his stuff there. When we were flying back, the pilots get out of the cockpit, and I don't like flying. So I'm like, sir, who's flying this plane? No, it's the other guy. And I'm like, all right. So they're all coming back getting Bo Jackson's autograph on the plane. So then all of a sudden I see two. I'm like, who's flying it now? I said, is this like the airplane movie that guys up there blow up things in there? Who's flying this plane right now? He goes, don't worry about it. So then we land in New York and people are just swarming. I'm thinking this must be like if you're Mick Jagger or the Beatles or Rolling Stones. They was that gigantic at that point. And I was pre-social media. I couldn't even imagine what it was like for him. I mean, because everything he did was under the microscope. I mean, from football, but football, you always said was fairly easy for him because he just runs through people or runs around them. And I was at that game when he got hurt with the Bengals. And I remember being there. I'm like, that's the first time that I felt I saw something different in him where he wasn't invincible. And I didn't know it was going to be that bad the way it turned out to be, but he was really fun to be around. He was really funny too, by the way.
Do you know the
Really funny.
reason why like the injury was so bad?
Yeah,
What they've
talking to
said?
Dr. Andrews, basically the normal human being and that would just go right down, but he just kept going and basically just pulled his whole socket out. I mean, it's like, again, he's just not that normal human being. And then he came back because I even faced him. And I remember going, I can't even look at him. And I remember he got a hit off me, and like, and even an infield hit. I'm like, dude, you ain't right. You ain't right. And then he homers for his mom, when he first came back. Who comes back from a hit? I mean, I've had hip replacement. I know I wasn't going to play professional sports after that. He was like, I'm so proud to say he was a teammate and be around him. I remember the day when they let him go. I remember being absolutely crushed in the locker because I thought this way it kept going and going. There's no way he's not going to be playing for and being a teammate going forward. But it was a tough time to see him go. But I was so happy when he came back.
What about the first time you saw him snap a bat over his leg?
Yeah, and I had to be an idiot too. Again, I said I'm not exactly a rocket scientist, so I tried it, and I swear my thigh hurt for about 1,000 years. Then he breaks one over his helmet too. I'm like, I'm
Yes.
not going to try that one. I got enough damage to my brain as it is. But I remember trying it over my leg. I'm like, oh my God, I am dead. I think I might have to go on the IL slamming. I'm like, what am I thinking of? Again, he's not a normal human being, and that's what it is. He's not a human being. And to do the things he did, like it was nothing. Like he could break a bat. I mean, these are bats. There's no way. I couldn't even break them a lot when I throw a fastball in at the handle of the bat, let alone break it over my leg.
Man, so to think about the fact that you got to call him your teammate and your friend, and then you switch now to the post career and you're now a broadcaster and you've gotten to watch Mike Trout play his entire career. People have said to me Mike Trout has some Bo Jackson traits. What do you say about Mike Trout from the first time you saw him to where he is now?
Just that's a great point. So people would always ask me, especially Trouty early on and all the way up to what we're seeing now. He goes, "Who do you best compare him to?" I said, "He's a combination of George Brett and Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson, the wow factor, body, but he has the George Brett baseball intangibles. So you fuse those two guys together, and I saw them both at their primes where they were doing it, the things they were doing with George and Bo, and then you put them in together, and that for me is Mike Trout. I mean, that body that Mike Trout has, and the speed he has, and the things he did, going back to that home run that he hit at Royal Stadium, Bo Jackson, Mike Trout hit one very similar spot, and I've always talked about that. I said it was up. His in the second fountain. I'm like, I think it went 480, 485. They measured it for Trout. So I'm thinking I feel vindicated right now because I've always said they were very similar as far as their wow factor, their athleticism. Trout going over the wall for that catch in Baltimore. Bo running up the wall in Baltimore like he's Spider-Man. So those comparisons, those guys, and I think and Trouty always just looks at me and smiles because he's the most humble person, just like Bo. That when you talk about them, they immediately change the subject. But I always say the Trouty, I go, Bo Jackson, George Breck, boom together. That's you. And he this smile, and he didn't go anywhere else with that. He didn't want to say anything more, but he realized, wow, that's a pretty significant compliment. But he never, obviously, never saw them play other than highlights. But I got to, even having George Brett talk with Trouty about things to this day on baseball wise, it's cool because those connections I've had to be able to do that with Trouty, it's pretty cool.
It's amazing. I can remember this was going back to 2013. I was at the Rose Bowl, and Phil Nevin, he was at the Rose Bowl, so we met up, and Nevin and I were talking, and I said, "Hey, what do you think about Trout?" And he says, "Best player I've ever seen." And I go, "Wait, what?" And he goes, "Best player I've ever seen." I go, "Better than Griffey?" He goes, "Kutch, he's the best player I've ever seen. His speed, his power, he can steal 40 bases if he wants. He can steal 50 bases if he wants. He can hit 40 home runs. He can hit 330. He can play the outfield. He is the best player I've ever seen." This was after 1 year.
Yeah,
And I was like, "Oh my God." And then every year, like he would validate that.
yeah,
And for you to then say now George Brett and Bo Jackson together, that's,
yeah.
I mean, that's
Uh,
unbelievable.
I mean, and like I said, because he's actually almost shy. And that's the
Hmm.
thing. And the comparisons to Mickey Mantle, obviously, early on, when you look at their faces and their hair and everything else, when he first, he was Mickey Mantle. And then Joe DiMaggio, then Ricky Henderson from, as a leadoff spot. It's not easy when you're always being compared to all the immortals of the game, yet he still, even when he had some struggles, though, he's staying on the field. But the home run he hit this past season in Colorado for his 400, that went like 480 something. I remember seeing it. I took a photo with the baseball. He actually let me hold it and stuff like that because we've been good friends. We go to Eagle games and stuff. The smile on his face, the relief on that, because every athlete, no matter what, I mean, even the greatest ones, they start doubting themselves when stuff goes south, whether it's injuries and things like that. But then as soon as he hit that home run, he had like a stretch of about this last 12 games where I'm like, oh man, he looks like he's back. Now, personally, for me, I think if he just settles in that DH role, plays a few days in the outfield, I think you're looking at a 40 plus home run guy again. He's that
Interesting.
good. So I think he's got that chance of being there and doing those things again. Just hoping that he has some guys around him to get him to that spot where everyone could, everyone goes, oh, the wasted years and blah, blah, blah. But and the thing I always say to him about George Brett said the same thing. Wearing the same uniform your entire career, it's not something you just kind of like, oh, no big deal. It is hugely important for some guys. And the best of the players, you look at Joe Mauers, the Cal Ripkins, the George Bretts, these guys took pride in wearing this one uniform. And Trouty does the same thing. And he's respectful for the organization. He's respectful for the fans. He wants to go out. I think somehow, some way, if he makes it to the postseason and something special, because we all know if all you do is get the postseason, you never know. Because the teams like who thought Toronto? Then Toronto, when you look at it, they have bases loaded, one out in the ninth inning to win the World Series. They didn't get it done. Dodgers, to their credit, they came and found a way to win Game 7. So you just never know. Baseball is the one sport where there's no guarantee. Now a 7 game series, it changes things. But when you get to that sixth and seventh game, it doesn't matter who's on your team. If that guy's on the mound is locked in, or some guy like Miguel Rojas hits a 3-2 breaking ball out to tie the game, those guys are Buddy Biancalana for us who hit like whatever, ends up being we call him the folk hero. But he ends up being a folk hero for us. We win the World Series. That you just never know once you get there because like no other sport, like I said, some hero will emerge, some pitcher will do the same. Somebody will, besides the guy should be the hero, it's going to be somebody else.
It's funny. I've always compared Mike Trout. I've called him the baseball version of Barry Sanders, where just unbelievable talent. and you just want them to get the chance. And he's been to the postseason once, but it was a 3-game sweep and whatever. And then as I hear you talking, I can't help but think of like Trout now, if he does DH and play a couple days in the outfield and he goes starts hitting 40 home runs again, and that the Angels make it to the playoffs. I could see a moment like when the Yankees made it to the playoffs and Don Mattingly hits the home run in game 2 and the place just goes nuts. Gary Thorne, I was watching the game and his famous call was hold on to the roof. Like
Yeah.
the and and I think Mattingly hit like 417 in that series against the Mariners. I could see Trout at this point, if he gets that chance, just going crazy in that postseason.
Yeah, because you feel like somehow the game will slow down tremendously for him, and this will be his moment to shine where everyone's like, yeah,
Yeah.
Phil Nevin was right. He is the greatest player we've ever seen because he hasn't been there. People don't talk in that same fashion, but they, in my opinion, they should. I mean, I watch him every day. I mean, I watch how he prepares every day. Sometimes injuries you can't do anything about it. George Brett got injured quite. Paul Molitor did early on a lot. So, but George Brett was ridiculous in the postseason. Paul Molitor, I mean, that's what you if Trouty can get there, and that's why the way the baseball is right now. That you feel like you have that shot, but you just got to keep everyone in the right page, and somehow that comes about. So I do it every time I look at him, and every time we have our conversation. I said, I just want to see you there. And he goes, I'm going to do it for these people here, the Angels fans. So you just, like I said, I'm just hoping. Obviously, you look at what the rosters are right now. Everyone's go, oh, but this team's good. I mean, obviously, Baltimore's looking pretty good with the moves they've made in this. But baseball is such a crazy sport. You just don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, who's healthy in the end?
Correct. I
And
mean,
that's the
that's
thing.
yeah,
So many
and
games.
I hate everyone talking about, oh, who wins the offseason, all that stuff. Usually the teams that win the offseason don't win the regular season and don't
Yeah.
win the postseason.
Yeah.
But there was a guy, we talk about how great Trout is. And then I can remember doing the game with you in Kansas City. And in the open, we say the best player in the world is Mike Trout. Yet the player that everybody's talking about right now is Shohei Ohtani. And so now this was back Shohei's rookie year. And you've had the chance to see Shohei since he first came up. Tell me what it was like watching him that first spring training, because he was struggling in a big way in that first spring training.
Justin, I'm glad you asked. I won't mention people's names and stuff, but I remember guys coming in there. I mean, these are tremendous baseball minds, writers, reporters coming up and saying, this kid is an A-ball player at best. And I remember looking at him and going, did you watch his bullpens? Did you watch his batting practice? They go, we don't need him. We're seeing the numbers he's putting up. I said, when I was drafted at a high school, go down to spring training, I was so homesick. I wanted to get injured so I can go home. Can you imagine him coming to a new country, the baseball side? Everything's different with all that pressure. And I'm thinking, just watch his bullpen session, the sound, boom, man, the ball off the bat. He is going to be incredible. Now, I didn't know he was going to be this insane, but just watching him and his work ethic and his just the way he went about his business every day. And it was crazy that in spring training, he said he was only going to do one interview, and that was going to be with me. I'm thinking, I don't understand how we built that relationship, how you had the trust he had. But I remember, like, even some general managers said back in the day, which I love saying that this because it makes me feel good. He's saying that his body very similar to my body, when the height and everything about our size when he was in high school and the way I was. So there was some comparisons, from that, and maybe he heard that, whatever it was. So he was comfortable with me. So we built a pretty good relationship over the years, and obviously the ups and downs of being injured, first couple of years, and everyone's like, why don't you just do one? Why don't you just hit? Why don't you just pitch? I'm going, this is not again, I go back to the Bo Jack. He's not a normal human being. And it's so hard to do both. We all did it in high school, but we only played 2 games a week. He's doing it 6, 7 days a week with the weight of his country and the weight of his teammates and the weight of baseball on his shoulders every single day. So all of a sudden in 21, 22, he's like, he's going to do both, and he's going to not have the day off before games or after games. He's going to play every day. And if you look at those 3 years he had, this last three with I mean, these last two with the Dodgers have been unreal. But those last three with the Angels, I don't see how anybody could ever duplicate that. I mean, he was a Cy Young candidate, and he's hitting 34, 38 home runs, stealing bases. And we often, even Coney, we all often talk about it, go, when we pitched a game, we couldn't even walk the next day. And he's facing Justin Verlander throwing 98, and he's hitting the ball 450 feet. How does he do it? And how does he continue at this, because it's funny. I used to watch him. So people come up to him and goes, "Are you tired?" He goes, "I just want to win." And then what else do you ask him after that? So they all leave him alone. But his mindset is different than anybody. Like when it comes to, most people would think you should be tired. In the game he had a doubleheader against the Tigers. Goes out and throws a one-hit shutout. Game one of the doubleheader. And I'm looking, all right, he's not playing game two. He's not playing game two. He never even pitched a complete game ever at any level of baseball. So I'm thinking all of a sudden I get the lineup for game two. I'm like, oh my God, he's playing game two, DHing. And he hits a home run to right center field, and he hits a home run to left center field. I'm like, and I was doing a game with Matt Vescurgia. I go, Matty, this is not a human. I don't know where this guy came from. That's where, the whole unicorn thing and everything else came about. I said, he's just not real. Yeah, I mean, no one, I mean, we're icing our arm now. We couldn't even be able, we're hoping to thaw out by game two. He's hitting home runs, two of them in game two of a double header. So then he goes to the Dodgers, did 50-50, and then last year finally starting to pitch again. But he's just, and even every time we see each other, he laughs because for a while there, he would rub up against my arm with his arm like I was his good luck charm when he was with the Angels. I'm like, dude, I want to do that to you because you're the one with all the luck. But he's funny as can be. That's the thing. He's so funny. But I think that allows him to be who he is because there's so much pressure. I don't know how he does it. I really don't know how he does it. Be this guy every day. He's 31 years old right now. I mean, most normal mortal human beings are unable to do what he's doing. But I remember always saying, never doubt him. I still go back when that rookie year, people saying, I'm glad the Yankees didn't sign him. He's an A-ball player at best. And I go, I don't think so. Just watch that bullpen, way he paints the corners at 98 to 100, his splitter. And then he reinvents himself with that, the slurve and all the other stuff he's been able to throw his curveball. But then that sound off the bat is like, I used to listen to Bo Jackson, that sound. I used to listen to McGuire and Canseco, that sound off the bat. But when Shohei hit the ball, it's like, wait a minute, where's this ball going? I mean,
Yeah.
the home runs that he hit at Camden Yards, we did an opening from, I'm thinking, by Boog Palace Barbecue. I'm thinking, I can't even see the field. And that's where the ball went. I mean, he hit one out at Dodger Stadium last year. I mean, he's really, for me, that World Series was one of the all-time great postseasons of any sport. He has made the game to what it is right now. I think we should all feel good about what he's done for the game because it's back to being what it was when we were kids. Everyone was baseball, 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 today and all these, this week in baseball when, with Mel and all
How
these
about
guys.
that?
Yeah. So we lived that. And now it's coming back because of the things that Shohei has done, and everyone around him is starting to do these things. Because there's so many great players in our game right now. But I think part of it is every player is such in awe of Shohei, just like they were with Bo. Again, I think everyone would be talking about Bo like they do with Show. I tried to get together a Bo no show thing when we were together with the Angels, but
too bad.
But
Yeah.
Bo was doing what the bike charity was doing down in Alabama when we were there. But I think people would, I feel bad that most people didn't get a chance to see Bo on every platform, media platform, other than some games he was in, the football games. But he was unreal. I mean, and then Shohei's the same way. You're not running like George would say when it came to Bo. I'm never thinking about going to the bathroom. I'm ever leaving the field when he's either at the plate or If I'm not playing that day, he's in the field. He might do something. He might throw a ball like he did throwing out Harold Reynolds at the wall at the
Throwing out
Kingdom
Mike
where,
Gallego, like at
yeah,
third base, like, oh my God.
yeah. I mean, it's like, it's one of those cool things where it's like, if I ever got a chance to see Led Zeppelin in concert, I'd be the same way. I'd be out of my mind.
All right. Well, I like to end all my podcasts with a segment that I call This Just In. So it's rapid fire questions that I have for you. You can take as long as you want with the answers. I remember you telling me that, well, A, you're a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. Trout, huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. And Mike Scioscia, the longtime manager of the Angels, huge Philadelphia Eagles fan. So you have to tell the viewers and listeners right now how you would notify and signal Trout and Scioscia what was going on in an Eagles game as the baseball game was happening.
Oh yeah. So Trouty's out in the outfield too. So I'm in my booth. And if the Eagles scored, I had to do I give them one of these things, like yes. Or if something bad, I just go like that. But most times it was something good, and he would give me that quick little fist pump or a little quick little, Eagles, yeah, they scored. So we were able to, even sometimes in the on deck circle, he'll look up at me. I'm like, I'll give the head down, or because his vision, he's got like that Ted Williams vision, or I go like yes, I give him a quick one. They're driving, and he goes, all right, and then he's ready. Then hit a home run. I'm like, dude, I feel bad. I'm telling you these things, and it's like 100-mile-an-hour fastball. But I think because of it allows him just to relax and in the old saying, clear the mechanism, where he can go up there and then boom, and he's going to do his thing. But he loves. I mean, he took me like out of nowhere. He goes, so after they won the Super Bowl in 17, and I thought in my lifetime I'd never see the Eagles would win a Super Bowl. So we're playing the Rangers on a Wednesday. He goes, would you want to go to the game on Thursday? This is when they're unveiling the Super Bowl banners and stuff. I go, you kidding me? Yeah. So we have an off day that Thursday. Then we go to Chicago after the game. So a few of us, you got a private jet. We're flying, and we land and we go to the game. And I'm sitting there on the sidelines going, my word, I can't believe I'm here. I'm seeing Fletcher Cox. I got my Fletcher Cox jersey on. He's going like, yeah, way to go, dude. Goes, who's wearing the Fletcher Cox jersey there? They're all wearing, Nick Foles and everybody else on the team. So I'm on the sidelines watching this game, and because his seats are right there behind the end zone, and these guys are all high fiving. I'm like, these guys are about ready to get their heads beat in, and they're high fiving Trout going out there. So and then we fly back there, and it was one of those surreal moments. I'm like, I can't believe in my lifetime, because I thought of my dad, because he never saw them win a Super Bowl, thinking, man, he's got to be up there in heaven thinking, wow, you went there. And I remember flying that on that private. I'd never been on a private jet either. I'm like, wait a minute, how high are we up here? It feels like I'm getting nervous up there to try to go, no, don't worry, we're fine. We're going to see the Eagles in the celebration. So, and then we fly back to Chicago after the game. And I'm thinking, this is one of the coolest things. And it was like, he didn't have to ask me to go to this thing, but he did. So I was like, so awesome to be able to be part of that.
Bigger fan of the Eagles, you or Trout?
I should say Trout because he goes to all the games, but I've been around longer, so I'll say me. I saw Vince Papale with, like, remember Invincible, the movie?
I interviewed him at a game one time.
The best, like I got drafted. He's coming over there in interviewing, and it's when he transitioned into the TV side. And I remember trying to ask me about being drafted. I'm like, oh my God. He goes, come on, I got to ask you. I go, no, you're Vince Papale. I had your jersey. He couldn't even get a question. He's, come on, I'm just trying to figure out this gig. So I'll say me just because I've been around there longer. And I always joke, I said, I'm from Philly too. I live in Philly.
Yeah. There you go.
But don't kill me for that one. I might not be invited back to any more games.
I think I know the answer, but you kind of hinted at it before. Favorite sport for you growing up?
Baseball. I didn't know any better because playing stickball, pretending crazy thing. One of my favorite Philly player was Bake McBride. And
I was going to ask, who is your favorite player?
I mean, it was too easy to say Schmitty and Greg Luzinski. And then Greg Luzinski was our hitting coach at Kansas City too, and Booney was there. So all these guys, and Larry Bowe was our coach when I was with the Angels. So I'm like, these are all but I love Bake McBride. I don't know, no rhyme or reason. He was a left-handed batter. I was a right-handed, but he had that little small bat. And he was up like this, and this is the way he smiled and the way he played the game. I love Bake and Manny Trio, because Manny Trio, I used to do this, and that's why hitters hated me. a ground ball back to me, I made him run all the way down the line before I throw it. So he used to do that at second base. He would wait and then boom, because he was a former catcher, so he had a great arm. So he made sure those guys were about a step away from the bag before he threw it over there. And then don't ever think about trying to take him out at second base because he threw from that arm angle. You were wearing that baseball if you didn't get down and out of the way quickly with Manny Trio.
I love it. I love it. All right. Toughest batter that you had to face.
Yeah. Mattingly by a mile. I'm so mad that he did. I joked around. I did something
I'm
on
so
MLB
mad.
Network that if he gets in the Hall of Fame, and he will at some point, he better thank me because I got him in there. And he's the guy. There's guys with other numbers against me, but he had those big moment at bats against me where I knew in my mind, which is you should never have as a pitcher, that man, if I don't make a perfect pitch, he's getting me. I can make a perfect pitch or a bad pitch, he was hitting it, and it was always going to be hit hard, hit far, in a big spot. And so Mattingly by far the toughest one.
You make your first All-Star team in 1988. You're a baseball fan growing up. I looked at the roster from that 88 team. Who was the player that you were just in awe of? Like, how do I say hi to this person?
Yeah, poof, that's a great question there because I'm thinking about all the guys even before the game, and you see like the Willie Mazes and Hank Aaron's in the clubhouse, and I remember shaking hands with George Bush Sr. and I'm like, and this is I remember going, probably Paul Molitor was the guy
Really?
for me. But I
Wow.
remember being so nervous. I remember going during batting practice. I stood by the outfield wall and never moved. And I used to be a guy that was diving for baseballs, going over the wall because I didn't want to look like a complete fool going for a ball. These were all these guys, and on the National League side, Gary Carter was on the other side. So here we are, flip forward to going to a Nike trip. We all got together, baseball players. So I'm sitting at a table with Gary Carter, and he comes up to me, and he was such a good guy. And he goes, you're the only guy that ever struck me out in an All-Star game. He'd been in like 16, 17 All-Star games. He never struck out. And I struck him out on that one. Because I'm thinking, it's, Gary, it's because you never saw me before. I remember throwing a slider. I almost went in the dugout and he swung at it. So, I mean, to this day, I always tell people I'm the only guy that ever struck out Gary Carter in an All-Star game. So those guys, I mean, Andre Dawson almost took my glove right off my hand with a line drive back up the middle. I look at those rosters because I still have pictures of there. It was unbelievable being on a roster with so many future Hall of Famers. Kirby
Mm-hmm.
Puckett was on those teams, but I knew Kirby for a while, so we had fun together. But I think Paul Molitor was the guy because he was such a tough competitor, tough out. So there was some great ones in there. Nolan Ryan in '89 was the one that I was like my new. I mean, it was like Dennis Leonard to him. I was wearing him out. I wanted to know his whole routine on how to work out, and I used that routine that he gave me for the rest of my career. As
Did you
far as
really?
yeah, from the running program, because I said, Nolan, what did you do to stay strong? He goes, I ran 5 miles a day. And then when I was exhausted, I ran 6 or 10 60-yard sprints as hard as I could to simulate pushing off the pitching rubber. So I started doing that. No sprints at the end, 60-yard sprints as hard as you can, 10. My legs felt like they were like 500 pounds. And then he goes, then you go in and lift your weights and do a lot of lower body work. So I did. I did that the rest of my career. And
Holy
when you
cow.
look at it, he was what, 46, 47, still throwing 95 and never had any arm problems. Because if your core and your legs are strong, chances are so will your arms stay strong. So, I mean, I believed in that one there for sure.
Player from the 80s or 90s that people don't realize how good they really were.
I'll go with my teammate, Danny Tartable, other than he was really good on Seinfeld.
Yes.
I mean, he goes to the Yankees to sign that big deal for them too. I mean, but we got him in a trade for Scott Bankhead with Seattle, and his talent was unreal. I used to say that to him a lot, that you don't realize how good. The same thing with when I was with the Angels with Jimmy Edmonds. I said, Jimmy, I feel like I'm talking Seinfeld. Jimmy plays basketball. Yeah. I said, you're every bit as good as Ken Griffey Jr., but Ken Griffey Jr. has that it factor where he believes in it. I said, Jimmy, you should be that guy too, because you're that talented. So Jim Edmonds, when we were together, and he had a great career too, but I think Danny Tartable had like crazy, stupid power great arm in the outfield.
Opposite field power
Yeah.
too.
Oh, like unbelievable. Great sound off the bat. Good base runner. His dad, he was a baseball player himself. So it was in him. So I think Bull probably
Okay.
was the one guy that I think people don't realize other than when you see what he does on Seinfeld and those shows.
Is the rumor true that you met your wife at Brett Saberhagen's wedding?
100%. Yes. And we're still together 39 years later too. So the old saying, "Hey, I met her at my friend's wedding." It was actually true there because I remember trying to talk to her, and she's like, "I don't want because you're here and I'm there, blah 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 blah." So I had her fly out to meet me in Philly, but she wouldn't. She's originally from New York, so she flies out to Long Island, and I have a red Trans Am, so I'm thinking I'm pretty cool. But there's a snowstorm. I'm coming out of my driveway, and my car
God,
gets stuck. So I'm like, oh my, how am I going to be able to do this one now? So I actually took a train up there to meet her family after all that too. So it was a courtship, that's for sure.
that's
And it's
awesome.
still working good with 3 kids and 2 grandkids later.
That's amazing. Gubie, you're awesome. I can't thank you enough for doing this. These stories are so good. I I just think about, some people are lucky and some people deserve to get the luck. Some of the teammates that you've had, some of the people you've been around, they're pinch me moments, but you deserve it. You're that good of a person, and I think it's all because you gave me my first autograph as a player. So good things were going to happen to you. But it's always fun working with you. It's always fun talking to you.
Justin, I really appreciate it. It's a great conversation, man. This is fun. I mean, it's weird how, and everyone always says it, you remember everything, especially for baseball players. I don't know what it is. Like when I see Jim Palmer talk to him, he remembers counts where he faced guys like in 67.
Yes,
And Steve Stone, the same thing. Guys, I mean, it's something, you know, that's the beauty of the game because it's at a pace where you can remember, but it's also the friendships because you're around them more than your family. I mean, you know the thing, you're around guys all the time. It's either you become real good friends or you're throwing punches. One of the two. I
that's the
prefer the
next podcast.
I prefer the friends part.
The next time we are on, we're going to talk about where the punches were thrown in the clubhouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, hey, Gooby, thank you so much. Have happy holidays, and I can't wait to see you again in person.
Justin, I can't wait, man. Always a pleasure talking to you. We will see each other real soon, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks, bud.
You got it.